What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Rick and Michonne, The Ones Who Live review episode. This is for episode 4, entitled What We, just what and we, those two words. Um, it's clear that they're trying to spell out certain things in the titles. Uh, Episodes 1, 2, and 3 were years gone by, and now it seems like the first 3 episodes are spelling something out, and now the last 3 episodes are going to spell something out. So I'm imagining episode 5 is going to be what we become, and then I have no idea what episode. I mean, because that kind of finishes the sentence, so I don't know. Episode 6 will be something. Um, but anyway, this is continuing from when Michonne tackles Rick out of the helicopter and they fall in the lake. Um, I have to say, if there was ever an episode that came as close, like I never thought The Walking Dead would give me Soprano vibes, and I don't mean that in the sense that it's a bunch of Italian mobsters smoking, playing cards, doing illegal gambling activities, and just being degenerates to society. I'm more talking about the emotional undertone. If anyone's seen Sopranos, more specifically Tony Soprano and Dr. Melfi, his psychiatrist, the how they have that kind of in the background, but it gets you underneath the psychology of what this very disturbed character is going through. And you just have the sit downs in her office and you kind of talk out these emotions, but in the context of the show and the plot. And it's kind of what we got for the entirety of this episode. Really, it felt like one big long conversation between Rick and Michonne. And the preview for the episode last week spoke to it, where Michonne's like, "We need a timeout." And that's exactly what they do. They stumble across this very nice like condo complex, and it looks like at first. So okay, and this is obviously not true, but I immediately, for whatever reason, thought, and sorry, there's something in my fucking eye as I'm trying to say this, but I immediately thought that it was Jadis's place, and the reason is because in the previous episode when she was, being all, seductive with Rick and like, oh, like, fucking like, touching his armor and just, you know, he's already taken. He's already taken. She continues to just be delusional, but she mentioned how she has like a really nice view from her place and blah blah blah. So when I saw the view that they have in this condo that like looks out to the lake, it's very pristine. I was just like, oh, could they possibly be in a secret like, off reservation base for soldiers, for CRM soldiers or something? That was my immediate thought. But then it didn't. There was really, other than the CRM blowing up the so it's funny because it kind of solves the problem, because I was thinking that, if they run away, like obviously like the repercussions are going to come immediately. But the chopper crashes in the chopper crashed in the storm. So, and it's crazy because Michonne, like Rick even says that, like Michonne saved his life because she tackled him out of the chopper, and then that very chopper crashes and everyone on the freaking thing dies. Now, my question is, did the chopper crash because of the storm? Most likely, but do you think maybe the pilot was trying to, maybe he went off course because whoever was flying it, like once he noticed that Rick and Michonne were gone, that she did what she did, I'm thinking that maybe the pilot tried to like circle back, and then because of the storm got all fucked up, and then that's when they crashed. Like, I mean, we'll never know. It's kind of like an untold backstory, like how did the how did the pilot crash? But like it's up to debate, right? Like, were they inevitably always going to crash? And so it's kind of like, holy shit, like Michonne's action, like it was almost kind of like a sign for Rick, right? Because So much of the psychology of this episode, and it's good for making us, again, like, I do appreciate that, like, when people were building up to this show, it was originally it was the movies, but the show, it was, why would Rick never come home? It's been 6 years. How can there be that many years of a time jump and this guy just doesn't come home? How can he just be continuously trapped? And so a lot of people theorize this. Like, how is the explanation going to be good that 6 years have gone by and this guy didn't once attempt to get back to his family? And we saw in episode 1 all of the futility of the escape attempts and really a man just being broken down by circumstance and scenario and the inevitability, never seeing that light of hope, and then just saying, like, and then that's that sad moment when he throws all of the drawings into the fire, and that's when he just concedes. He just concedes, and that's when he joins Okafor and he joins with the CRM military, and it's off from there. So in this episode, he's still, that psychology, we get underneath all of that psychology. And I understand, obviously, because, the amount of time that he was trapped there, the fortification, the size of the base, everything that this, it's a civilization. It's essentially like an empire. There's not even the saviors had an empire, right? Like, you could escape the saviors. They were just a bunch of marauders running throughout Virginia. They had a sizable force, but they did not have helicopters. They did not have a military. They did not have bases of operations that spanned across the entire country. They just did not have this. They were just a totalitarian force of marauders, and that was it. But, this is something, it's kind of like the name of the episode or the comic where Negan's introduced. The CRM is something to be feared. They are the epitome, and really they are the next step above the Commonwealth. Because if you look at the Commonwealth, they're like a self-contained entity that's sizable, and they've got the trains, but, like, they never really expanded beyond that. And I feel like if Kirkman did continue the comics, he might have created the CRM, a group that is kind of almost like the Enclave from Fallout, the remnants of the government. They have wide-spanning control. They're as close to a rebuilt government that's a dictatorship that's really just, like, they get their way no matter what. Like, they're basically a dystopian force. I mean, like the dystopian government from, like, the Hunger Games. They're a dystopian force that has the power, the backing, the soldiers to get their will done. And Rick being a prisoner of this for 6 years. And it just, again, episode 1 did a good job of making you believe that. And so building off that, in this episode, you see the psychology of just Rick not bending, because Michonne is just frustrated. He just will not, he wants to, like, almost carry out, he kind of believes in what Okafor was saying, and this is why I'm mad that he died, because it seemed like he wanted to build the CRM up better, and Rick is kind of, like, almost trying to continue that mission, but he's like, Michonne's saying there's no way, they kill random people, they're horrible. And so this argument lasts the entire episode. And I peeked at, right before this, I'm always curious, I peeked at, a few people who were talking about the episode, and this, by the way, was written by Denai Guerrera, who played Michonne. It was written kind of in the behind the scenes. Scott Gimple says that, like, Denai very much was, like, kind of took over as showrunner. Like, the entirety of the episode was hers to play with. And the whole episode is Rick and Michonne in this condo complex. It's broken up by some fights with walkers. A chandelier falls on Michonne's leg, and there's, like, a tense moment of them having to get it off. And then they have a sex scene, which is probably much deserved after the time that they've spent apart from each other. And then they have one more wrap-up conversation, which is one of my... You see, the review I saw was complaining that, like, nothing moved forward with the plot. Like, the whole episode was just this... elongated argument about their circumstance. What I would argue is like the weight of it is to the point where you couldn't conclude it in a 20-minute segment. I didn't feel like one on-screen conversation could do it. Even when Michonne walks out the door and leaves, and Rick is like, he's like, do I chase after her? Do I not? Like what do I do? Like he's conflicted, and Michonne's crying. She's kind of waiting there, but she's gonna like. It seems like there might be a schism, but even then, I was like, there's no way that this type of heaviness, this conversation can be concluded with one conversation. This is like heavy, complex shit. This is a man who's been psychologically manipulated for 6 years, and somebody, his wife, who left home, left her children, has no way of knowing if her children are okay. I mean, if you remember, Judith did tell Michonne that Alpha was killed. So she, like, in her mind, it's like, okay, the Whisperers are basically defeated. I mean, funnily enough, the Whisperers weren't even defeated at that point. That was just when Negan killed Alpha. But we still had Beta and the rest of the Whisperers. I mean, obviously, the end of that finale wasn't that great anyway. For all the build-up, and then they made us wait all that time because of COVID. I mean, the ending of the Whisperers was not that great in my opinion. Like, all the episodes up until that finale were really good, but the way it was just kind of like unceremoniously the way they went out. I was just kind of like, meh. I was like, yeah. But anyway, I touch upon that in the review that I did years ago for that episode. But Michonne has, I guess, some peace of mind knowing that Alpha's dead. That was the last conflict she was a part of. The Whisperers are done. She knows nothing of the Commonwealth. And that's the thing, like, maybe if she knew about the Commonwealth and the fact that our group, because they just keep saying Alexandria. If she knew that they, like, now Ezekiel and Mercer, like, if we're basing it off of and I don't know where in the timeline this falls, right? Like, when the Commonwealth arc ends in the main show, like when the main Walking Dead show ends, Ezekiel and Mercer are now the leaders of the Commonwealth. Pamela Milton's in jail. They've dealt with that Walker threat that got into the Commonwealth. Daryl runs off to fucking France. Negan and Maggie run off to New York. Like, where in the timeline of the Rick and Michonne, like, when is this happening? Like, that I don't know, because with the main group, we know that they basically just live in the Commonwealth now. And Alexandria and Hilltop are part of, like, the Alliance and everything. But, they have a stronger force, is what I'm saying. Like the CRM would probably still cut through them, even the Commonwealth soldiers. And, I mean, this is what people have been speculating. Like, will we get a Commonwealth CRM war? I thought they might mention something CRM in the final season of the original show. They never freaking did it. I'm hoping, depending how this ends, I'm hoping there's something left. But anyway, a little bit of a divergence, but the main point is, like, I was okay with the whole episode just being about Michonne and Rick, because, like, this isn't something you just wrap up in one conversation. Like me being a writer, there are some, like, heavier details with characters that, in my books, where I feel like it would be unbelievable. It wouldn't be like, if Michonne and Rick had that just one conversation in the beginning of the episode when it's raining and storming and lightning, and she's like, oh, you have a son, his name's RJ, and Rick's like, oh my gosh, I have to immediately run home with you, and that, like, I wouldn't believe that. Like, you can't undo 6 years of trauma, and we've only seen a little bit of it. We had kind of episode 1 as a montage, but we don't really understand the full scale of kind of, like, what's going on with Rick. Like, and we know that it got to the point where it was so bad that he freaking cut off his hand, and, he drew Michonne and Judith that's how Michonne found the evidence of Rick. Like, he's just, it's been painstakingly him trying over and over to get away. And that's what I praised about episode 1. It made us believe that there was a futility to what he was doing. and that, yeah, we haven't seen him for so many years yet because he can't escape. This is like a military dystopian force that is just not there. The secretive of what they do is paramount. And we see it in this episode. They blow up that freaking helicopter because they don't want evidence of fucking anything. They don't want people knowing what they're doing. Which is funny because, like, you know, anyone on the ground can see a fucking helicopter with those rings on it, you know? Maybe in their mind they're like, oh, what the heck, or something, but, like, I don't know. I mean, like, considering they have the Oklahoma's gone now, but they've got Portland still, and then they've got their Philadelphia base. Like, I mean, Rick saw it, Negan saw it, I mean, that one episode in season 8, like, some of our characters have seen the helicopter. I mean, obviously it's just there and then it leaves, and it's like a UFO, and the CRM are very much like aliens. They're kind of just, they're never there. They're there and then they're not. So I just, overall, I didn't have a problem with that. With and I like the acting, I gotta say, in these episodes has just been phenomenal. Like, what we got, like, when I was getting, like, teared up when Andrew Lincoln was talking about, like, not seeing Carl anymore in his dreams, and then, like, he has that dream sequence with Michonne. That makes more sense to me, because I was questioning that. Like, why is there, like, this present-day, like, dream with Michonne? Doesn't make much sense, and I'm like, okay, like, his dreams keep gravitating towards his family. And just the breakdown that he has, like, it's almost like something, and that's why I mentioned the Sopranos Melfi thing, because it felt like something you'd have in a psychiatry session. Like, it was couples, someone said, like, an hour of couples therapy. And I guess that's, so much of this 6-part series was billed as a romantic, like a romance story, and so many times I'm reminded of that, right? Like, like, the fact that, like, they had to overcome this together mentally, right? Like, they're fighting walkers, but I like the fact that, like, not everything is just them fighting the big bad guys. And again, the CRM is too powerful to the point where it would be unrealistic if they were somehow able to just wipe them all out. There's no way. Michonne and Rick are not going to do that. The only way this gets resolved is, like, they've got to go back home and figure out a plan. And that's why I'm hoping that there's some larger show where everyone comes back together. Carol and Daryl come back from their French escapades. I don't know what the fuck with, you know, Negan's now with the Ozark woman doing something in New York. I really don't know what. They are making a second season, but I don't know what the plot is of that, because the plot of the first season of Dead City was kind of resolved. Herschel was captured, and it was a way for the Croat to get Negan out of hiding, and now Herschel is back with Maggie, and Negan was traded essentially, but it's now more of a partnership with the crazy woman that the Croat was with. So it's like, you know, I always thought, and it always made sense to me, that the CRM was Endgame. This is the Endgame. Like, if you want to think, like, Avengers Endgame, Walking Dead Endgame, like, this is what we've been building up to for a very long time. For fuck's sake, in the very first episode of The Walking Dead in 2010, Rick sees a helicopter. I'm not saying that was the CRM, and maybe if you ask Scott Gimple, he would say that it was, but, like, you know, what were they doing in fucking Atlanta? But, like, that's the thing that it's kind of like what sets him on his whole path. He's on the horse, he rides it into the horde of walkers, he jumps in the tank, and then Glenn contacts him, and then we know the story from there. So, you know, they've been foreshadowing this, and that's probably why they did it, right? When they were thinking of the idea for the CRM, it's like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of references to, you know, the helicopters and Rick, and so, you know, they're going to have one save Rick, and then, you know, it's such a big focal point of the group that he's captured by, so overall, I really enjoyed this episode. The acting from Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera is out of this world amazing. It's amazing, like, the acting capabilities, and I don't understand how Andrew Lincoln doesn't get a fucking Emmy or something. He was always snubbed in the original Walking Dead. Some of his performances for seasons 5, 6 when, Negan's gonna make Rick cut off Carl's hand. Like, it's just a sin. A sin, alright? Just because it's a zombie show. Like, it's like, oh, like, guy can't get a fucking award. I mean, plenty of people got award for Game of Thrones, and that was fantasy. Why can't this man get a fucking award for this great acting performance? He comes back after all these years of having not played the character. He was basically gone as long as his character was gone in the show. 6 years, comes back and just kills it. And same with Denai Guerrera. She was gone for the show for a long time, comes back and kills it. I don't understand, whatever. I mean, it's a separate topic, but the dude's doing phenomenal. She's doing phenomenal. And I'm just going to miss this. Like, we only have 2 episodes left, and that just doesn't feel real. Like, it only feels like we just got started. And, now that Rick has decided that they're going to go home. Like, they jumped in a hybrid car. There was, like, a joke about the stick shift. And now they're on the road back home to Alexandria. But are they going to get there? No. In the preview like, it seems like someone's stalking them in the preview to the next episode. My guess, it's got to be either Thorne or Jadis. It's either Thorne or Jadis. Those are the only 2 people. Thorne, who's kind of gone power hungry now, taking Okafor's role, and then Jadis already made her threat. However, they do have, like, on paper, it looks like they died in the crash in the building. And now that the building collapsed at the end of the episode, there's really no evidence at all. Like, how would you ever scavenge evidence to see if there's dead bodies of Rick or Michonne? You wouldn't. So, that's kind of just... It's kind of just is what it is. But so on paper, the CRM doesn't think they're alive. My guess, I'm pretty sure Jadis is going to catch up to them, and there's going to be a fight. I'm guessing Jadis is going to die. But that's the thing, though. Like, the CRM thinks that they're dead. So even if she dies, would the intel still have them go and bomb Alexandria? Again, they don't know about the Commonwealth. There's still, like... I still believe the Designation 2 stuff, and I believe Lance Hornsby had a deal. Like, he mentions alliances to Pamela. I believe the Designation 2 stuff was a neutrality agreement where the Commonwealth, any people who were saying bad shit about Pamela Milton, they sent them to Designation 2, which was just trading. It's the same thing Jadis and the Junk people were doing. Trading A's and B's to the CRM, and that was that. Like, that has to be it. They didn't explore it, but it's... And I think Angela Kang did say, like, if they had more episodes, they might have gone into it. But I wish there was just, like, a reference. Oh, we have a deal with another group, or there's, like, we don't know. Again, I think it's implied, right? Like, if they said anything in that realm, it would open a can of worms that Daryl and the other characters would probably want to explore. But they kept it vague, right? But again, since Ezekiel and Mercer now are leaders of the Commonwealth, wouldn't they be able to ask some of the soldiers or somebody, hey, where the fuck does this train go for Designation 2? Do they have a train route that goes to a CRM outpost or some shit? I don't know. But, that's the thing, like, the CRM, on base, Jadis doesn't know about the Commonwealth, is what I'm saying. She wouldn't know that, like, that's their main hub. Alexandria still exists, but when we saw RJ and Judith that final scene, they're at the Commonwealth. So if Alexandria did get bombed by the CRM helicopters, they wouldn't be there, but some people would probably die. Probably Gabriel or Aaron or some of the characters that we know. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know how this ends. I really don't. I have a bad feeling that, like, one of the characters is going to die, either Rick or Michonne. That would piss me the fuck off. But there's no way, in terms of the larger CRM, this has to be continued somehow. There's no way General Beale, Jadis, Thorne, the entirety of the CRM's ecosystem, there's no way this gets resolved in 2 more episodes. There's just no way. They're focusing more on Rick and Michonne's relationship. Like, the lore of the CRM has been woven into this But the majority of this, and that's what it's been billed as, it's their romantic story, them trying to find each other and get away. So, like, if there is a part 2, and I've been seeing people saying, like, there's got to be a part 2. You got to have a season 2, you got to have a season 2. You got to have something, even if you rename it. If he does want a new Walking Dead show where all the spin-offs come back and link up, again, I don't know what the fuck the stuff in France or the stuff in New York has anything to do with the greater Walking Dead story. I really don't. Because this show is the closest to a sequel to continuing the story beyond season 11 as we've gotten. The Daryl, Carol, Negan, Maggie, their adventures in France and New York, they feel like spin-offs. They do. Because France is in another fucking continent, and New York City, why is this all unfocused? What the fuck? There we go. New York City, while it's not actually that far from Philadelphia, which is, like, again, I don't know how the fuck the CRM doesn't know or hasn't been to New York City. I don't get that. But it feels like all of those events are just happening in a contained silo, right? Like, okay, like, who cares what happens with the Croat and the fucking Ozark woman trying to rule New York? Like, the Saviors 2.0. Awesome. Okay, whatever. Who cares if the French, these nationalist French douchebags are trying to make Walker variants? I thought that they were CRM because they did have the black uniforms, like that woman, that French national woman who makes Daryl go in the cage match. Like, I thought she was CRM. She's not, to the best of my knowledge. So, like, all these things are happening in contained silos. Like, none of it feels like it's impacting the Commonwealth Alexandria Hilltop. Everyone's just continuing to thrive and have their lives there. And they're just doing just fine. But if this CRM shit... See, that's the thing. If the CRM stuff with Rick and Michonne, if that gets out of hand, everyone else is fucked. And that's why this feels more like a sequel. Because those events, like, it really... The question of what's next is huge. If Jadis finds out that they're alive and she acts on her promise, there is a war that is coming in the story of this show. That can't be accomplished by the Daryl, Carol, Maggie, Negan shows. And that's why I watched them, and they were good for self-contained shows, but they never, they were just that. They were self-contained. And I was getting, like, okay, Walker variant information. There was some cool backstory with the Croat and the Saviors with Negan. But beyond some of that, like, the first seasons of both of those shows that I've watched now and done reviews of, there's nothing kind of, like, what is there beyond? Maybe now season 2s of both of those shows are getting made. Maybe I'll get some answers, but, like, I don't see where the direction is going. And it makes me feel, and I'm not saying this is on the same quality, but it does make me feel a little bit like Fear the Walking Dead, where Fear the Walking Dead just felt like a pointless show that was just telling content for the sake of telling content. There was no greater story, no interconnectedness. It was just blah. It was The Walking Dead 2.0 with characters we didn't like as much. It started out as showing the collapse of civilization, but then after one season they abandoned that. And that's pretty much when I abandoned the show. So, not to go off on I'm just, as we get closer and closer, I'm just fearful of what... I hope they stick the landing. I hope they stick the landing, and that the because Scott Gimple has said that there is something that comes after. Like, there is a ... And there has to be. You can't make me believe that Rick and his group are going to annihilate this 200,000 person military force that has kept Rick subjugated for 6 years. You're not convincing me that that's happening. And I would just be bullshit if they wiped out the biggest threat they've ever had in the entirety of this universe. I mean, that's what this tile says. The entirety of the Walking Dead universe, every show, spinoff, anything they've ever made. This is the biggest threat, the most interesting that we've ever had. And Rick is at the center of it. Michonne is at the center of it. That's why I'm intrigued. In addition to their great acting and the storytelling, that's why I'm intrigued about this. And I want to know whatever comes next. There is something that comes next, right? And that depends on the fate of Rick and Michonne. Like, I need to know what happens in the next 2 episodes. We need to watch the next 2 episodes to find out, like, what their fate is. And then we can, and, how does this end? How does this end? Does the CRM know about Alexandria? Do they attack it? What happens to Jadis? I feel like she's going to die. Probably, most likely. I don't know. So, anyway, my reviews seem to always tackle this matter, but it's inevitable because I feel like it's almost like it's a helicopter, like, of its own entity, like, just hovering around us as this story is being told, because I'm like, this is only 6 episodes and there's no commitment. They kept saying limited series. This is what I was fearful of before I even watched an episode of it. I'm just like what is the plan? Is there a plan? Is there more? Like, what am I just gonna be left with the fucking Daryl, Carol, Negan, Maggie shows and that's it for Walking Dead going forward? Like, there's no way. Like, there was just an article by Gimple talking about how the Walking Dead universe has survived and has avoided fatigue. I mean, look at the viewer. If they needed any evidence, the viewership, the intention, the interest, the praise that these episodes have gotten thus far, like, how can you not want to recreate and continue that magic? That is literally all I'm saying here, people. Continue the story. You've done all this. You've laid out this breadcrumb trail with the CRM for fucking years, ever since Jadis was introduced. You had Rick's exit strategy, and you parlayed it into this great storyline, okay? The seasons that Rick wasn't in the original Walking Dead show, yeah, it kind of suffered from his presence not being there, but they were still good. The Whisper arc was amazing. Some people liked the Whisper arc more than the Savior arc. And the Commonwealth arc was okay. It honestly suffered from the show having to wrap up too quickly. They could have done way more with Lance Hornsby and Pamela Milton, but it wrapped up far too fast. So, So that's what I have to say. The episode was great. It was. The acting was great. And I stand by the fact that I didn't mind that the whole episode was their ongoing conversation, because it's not something you can just resolve in 5, 10, 20 minutes of screen time. You needed the totality of this episode. But that's what I'm saying again. If they had more episodes, you could say, okay, episode 4 is just for this, but then we're going to have other ones. We're going to talk about Thorn, we're going to talk about Oak for more, and you could have done more episodes, man. Why 6? Who said 6 episodes? Who's the person who said, gee, I think it's going to be 6 episodes? I mean, originally it was going to be 3 movies, but why was it 6 episodes? Why? Oh, I hope my questions are answered, and they will be. But anyway, it's gonna be a long wait. I'm gonna have to avoid social media, guys. There are people uploading clips early, and I'm seeing also, like, I gotta avoid, as we get to 5 and 6, I need to fucking avoid. This is like almost like the who did Negan kill cliffhanger. Like, I gotta avoid the internet as much as possible, because this is like, this is the last thing I could possibly get spoiled on. There's no commitment that these characters are going to be back beyond these last 2 episodes. I gotta savor this shit, especially if something happens to them. So, there you go. Alright. Anyway, thanks guys, and hope you guys liked the episode. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you later for more content. Peace out.